agenda item, which is the high school review, because we had been tabling this month after month, waiting for them to pass the rollover language. So now we're not really in a spot that's a lot different than before we got the rollover language. Now that they want to open the contract in September, we still don't know now what their financial package is going to be. We were comparing Narragansett's to NK, but now NK's is a big question mark. People can chime in. I think we're all in agreement that the high school review report certainly seemed to tip in the direction of NK. Certainly there were no major red flags that popped up. Well, there were no major red flags for either school, and I think that's philosophically the huge benefit to doing this review is that we've been to the top of the mountain, we've looked over the other side, and it doesn't look bad. I mean, if we find ourselves in a position of wanting to change, we have a very viable option. I don't think we're in a position now to discuss that change because,
I think finances is such a big piece.
You can't ignore finances.
It's not the only piece,
right.
But it is a big piece, and we can't make it. So what do? Do we table it again?
Well, I think, we certainly, in the best of all worlds, if the negotiations were done prior to November, and we were able to use November as a notification date, we would want to make a decision for the following year.
Yeah.
I don't see that happening, so I would suggest that we, since we are not unhappy with NK, that we accept NK as our continuing high school record right now, but that we continue to monitor very closely because there have been some problems. We have a change of principal. There was a high school ranking report that came out a month ago that Narragansett ranked significantly higher than NK for a variety of reasons. So there definitely, we need to monitor both, continue to monitor both schools. And
we'll need to ensure that NK will be able to issue diplomas in 2012, because right now they're not in a position to do that.
That's right. Another very important reason for monitoring.
So, Kathy, by what you just said there, whatever we discussed tonight, we didn't vote on anything, so I'll wait for the commissions.
I'm not sure we need a motion.
Okay.
I think that the contract stands as it is now.
Okay.
That we continue to monitor. That we continue to both schools. We continue to monitor both schools, and that. I mean, clearly both schools. I know everybody else has spent a lot of time thinking about this and going over the high school review report. Both schools have assets for factions of our population. So I think that we owe it to the community to monitor very carefully while we let this contract stand in place, and that we deliberate on this when we have more answers to the questions.
I don't think we'll make a decision until we know the financial.
No, well, you can't.
So what I heard was contract stays in place pursuant to negotiations and understanding and monitoring.
Monitoring
Both schools, do we time box that, or do we say pursuant to negotiations in September to whenever they agreed upon?
Well, in September, if negotiations end before November, we're going to need to make a decision for the following year.
Got it.
So that's a time box. Are people comfortable with that?
That I.
Okay. Well, the only item of left on our agenda is the town financial aid. And the big question is, how do we fit 800 chairs into the lawn gym?
700 and some.
700 and some.
Promise no one will be turned away.
Now, what, did people RSVP? How do you know only 700?
Yeah, well, that's because that's the maximum that the officials, the fire chief is going to allow us, the fire marshal, I'm sorry, is going to allow us to have in that room. That number also is requiring that there be 5 firefighters there, the chief included, to monitor that size of a crowd, because that, you know, the facility itself was not intended to have that many.
Do we have seating?
We have with bleachers on the sides, and all of the chairs that we have will have seating for a little over 500 people. Up to the limit, those people will be standing. We just don't have any more chairs.
And what happens at a town financial meeting if people get turned away because of the, right?
Good question, I don't think that's ever happened, so.
Well, this is something that we talked to,
Yeah.
Jane and I spent a good amount of time with the town administrator and Tina about, you know, what the sequence of things, what we should expect, and they are talking about renting a tent.
Huh.
How that, I asked,
But
where is it
everybody?
going to be, and how, you know, how is this, how are you gonna know that you need to set it up? Maybe
Right.
only 500 will come, maybe 200. We don't know how many. You know, it seems to be very high interest in the community for the meeting, but I'm not sure how.
Have you all talked about it?
No,
No.
well, no, I mean, I know that Bruce is working on
Right.
it, obviously.
Mhm.
As far as the council talked about it now. And I think that he's actually thinking, the other thing is having some sort of audio thing that you could do outside if you have people outside. It's real tricky.
Jane and I were talking about, you know, what we've seen in some other towns, and suggested to Bruce that he at least think about what if we set up the cafeteria with video cameras.
Could do that.
So that, you know, with two-way communications and mics.
How much
So,
does the cafeteria hold?
I don't know, we don't have any more
It's not
chairs to
big,
go
you
in there, we
know,
have to
right.
rent
It's in the
chairs.
one,
Yeah.
But,
it's like 140.
I don't know, Kathy, do you know the
It's in,
capacity?
I think it's 135, 140, it's not really high.
Those tables, the benches on each table.
Can go
Oh,
check
that wouldn't be the, I wouldn't think we would use those for seating, I think we'd
How
have
much
to go
does
out and rent
PAC
chairs.
hold? Do we even have a facility that can hold?
No.
No, I mean,
No.
as far as I know, Lawn Avenue is the
I
largest
think the gym's the
single
largest.
place,
Mhm.
other than the
Really?
tent.
The community center isn't bigger than the
No.
But I'm just not sure how we would get power and, you know,
250.
Wow,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
No,
250 is about.
mics and,
have to increase the budget.
yeah, I don't know, we're
That's not
certainly
gonna-
willing to work with the town, but.
Well, the good news is that's not our problem to solve.
Yeah.
So let's,
Yeah,
what is
really,
our problem to solve?
It's,
So-
from my perspective, it's a very, it's such a mobile kind of what's gonna happen, so you really don't know.
Right.
I mean, I'm not sure, I mean, how many, what was the maximum they've ever had?
They had, at that one in the early 90s,
500.
there were 700, I think.
It was
Well,
quite
I had heard
Really?
5, but
Five?
could be.
I didn't know.
I had heard
Maybe
500.
I remember it as this.
That they had to make it
Really?
2 nights.
Right, right,
Yeah.
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 That was my first town financial
Well,
meeting.
you know,
Oh,
I
was
mean,
it?
the question is do we, you know, unless, you know, nothing, you know, there are no motions yet. There's only warnings or warrants that there will be motions, or could be motions. So the idea is you could have anywhere from 4 or 6 to the other 18.
So are they doing the warrant, how did
Well,
what
this
did
is,
Bruce
this
say?
is how, he wasn't,
Lay it out
you know,
for us.
he wasn't definitive that this is how it was going to be, but what he was anticipating, and please correct me if, you know, if you're thinking differently than this, was that the town budget would be put forward first. And, you know, as it's presented, I guess people can put holds on certain items. And then any motions to amend the town budget would then, that's the time that they would be presented, debated, voted on. He said that, you know, if there's, it's his understanding that one major motion could be presented to cut the entire 400 and some odd dollars from the town budget.